Hey guys, what's going on? This is Roth. I am here once again with the very awesome Josh McDermitt,
I'm
Dr.
back.
Eugene Porter. And you know what we're going to talk about? Listen, if you guys haven't seen the season opener for The Walking Dead, here's your warning. Full spoilers. We're going to talk about it. Are you ready?
Yeah, it just aired, so you better tune away if you don't want spoilers.
And go check it out. It's really good. Let's talk about this episode because we were promised the biggest episode yet. And it felt like they really delivered to me. For you, as somebody that's in the show, what was your experience as a viewer?
Well, first, when I'm reading the script, I'm going, oh my gosh, like, how are we going to be able to do this? This is like insanity, you know? But then when I see it as a viewer, look, I'll be honest, I'm not a huge fan of the horror genre, and the only reason I was a fan of this show is because it's not necessarily about zombies. It's a show about the human condition, and like the biggest threat is your fellow human, you know? So that's why I liked it. And I've never had to look away before, but on the first episode, there were moments where I was like, oh my gosh.
What were those moments? We can talk about those moments specifically.
Well, come on, there's the cutting of the throat.
Yeah,
just
rough.
the blood. I'm going, okay, this is real, you know? And it's like, I can do gore, it's not a problem, but it was so real, and just the bat hitting the heads. And I'm just like, oh my gosh.
I feel like it made me want to be a vegetarian again. I feel like I was like, this is the experience of the slaughterhouse for the cow. This is what they feel like.
Right? It's, there were moments where I was kind of tearing up just thinking like how crazy this is. And to think if I were actually in that moment, me, Josh, just like how scary that would be.
Yeah.
You know? And Greg Nicotero did a great job directing this episode, and
lots of zombie action.
Scott Gimple, of course, wrote it, and they promised a huge episode, and it not only it delivered. It went even bigger than that.
The Judith moment. I didn't think it was going to. They weren't going to follow through and snap the baby's neck, you know. But I did find that moment very tense because she was the poor little baby was in.
Yeah.
So that was a moment for me that I found hard to watch.
It was difficult. The actor who had his hands around her, Chris Coy, amazing actor, and did such a great job in last night's episode. And I was talking to him, and because I wasn't on set that day, but apparently Greg Nicotero was outside of that shack screaming, harder, squeeze her harder, and like, of course, he's not going to want to squeeze the baby, but Greg's just saying that to get like a little bit more intensity out of Chris Coy, and it's like it really came through. You're just going, oh my gosh, this poor baby, you know. And then the moment where he, pulls out the knife, and then her eyes look down at the knife. I'm like, how did she do that?
Yeah.
How did Judith look at the knife? That's a good actress.
She's a good, already trained. Eugene has a big moment in this episode. Like, we've talked about, he's been sort of an observer to date, and sort of, Abraham has been the alpha in this relationship. But he comes out, and it was kind of like, in a scientific way, a very badass moment.
Right.
Talk a little bit about playing that moment, what you think it means. Will the group now trust him a little bit more going forward, do you think?
Yeah, well, we live in a world where you can't trust anybody,
right.
And even when we're sitting in the train car and, our people don't know who Rick is, and here's this guy who comes in at the end of his rope, and we're like, who's this feral, wild animal? Like, he says, they don't know who they're screwing with. It's like, okay, well, I don't know who I'm screwing with, So it's very hard to trust people. But the relationship between Abraham and Eugene is very much like a general and a sergeant, Eugene's a lot like the general, where he's giving the orders, and the sergeant is carrying out those orders with the mission. And so, it's fun to watch that dynamic. But at that point where Eugene kind of had to get up and say his piece, they don't know what's going on out there. There's gunfire, explosions, walkers are coming up and banging on the train car. And it's like, if we get out of here, I need these people to have my back.
Yeah.
And so it was a big moment for Eugene to kind of give them a little bit of information about what he knows so that he could at least get them on his side. It was a huge moment, and especially, when they jump out of the train car, Abraham says, nobody leave his side. And you know what? Everyone's right there. One of the walkers almost grabs Eugene, and Sasha's there to kill it. So it's, right there, that speech was worth it. But he also, says right at the beginning, even if I told you everything, the cure would still die with me.
Right.
Because he needs to have that information to himself, because if he divulges that, he is a weak link.
Yeah.
He's the weakest member of their group.
Culling from the herd.
Yeah, it's like, they may not have to protect him anymore. It's like, well, he already told Secure, so that's why he hasn't told them yet.
Yeah. How clever do you think Eugene is in terms of, this is such a great survival method for him?
Yeah.
To be like...
It's very clever. I mean, that's his only skill is his brain.
Yeah.
It's like he has absolutely no survival skills otherwise. He can't kill a walker. He can't... he says, I can't take a dead one down with sharp buttons and hella confidence, because he just doesn't have that kind of confidence with his physical strength. He does with his brain, and so that's what he has to use to survive.
And I think it's really interesting for those that are not familiar with the comic. We're not going to talk about what happens with the storyline in the comic, but I think it's really interesting. But it might be different. We don't know. This infusion of potential hope in the midst of them at really their darkest moments.
Yeah.
They've just seen something so ugly. And Rick and Carol are totally in sync with, like, who do I got to kill next? Because
Right.
I will.
Right.
But here comes Eugene saying, but maybe there's a way out of this thing, and we can be human again.
And all the people that we've lost, won't be for naught, And even though they've already died, like, let's try and flip this thing, and let's try and, save the world, because it is hope. They're in their darkest hour, But Gareth even said it to Bob last night. He goes, hey, you can't go back, Bob.
Yeah.
You can't go back. So it's like they've done all these things, but here they are trying to go back, because maybe you can.
Is that tension going to kind of play out over the season as they become more and more brutal and ruthless, and Eugene's yet there saying, but hey, maybe there's a way out. Maybe we should maintain some of our humanity. We have to.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of a conflict. I mean, you even saw it between Rick and Glenn, when Glenn was saying, we got to let these people out of that other car. And he's like, we're those people. We still have to be those people.
Yeah.
There's always going to be that tension based on, how far someone's gone down that rabbit hole, and whether they can kind of come back with enough, clear-mindedness to go, yeah, we should help save people.
If you were in this world, which character, you, Josh, which character do you think that you would be? Which character would you like to be? I mean, I would like to think that I would be Carol now, where she's just like, I loved that moment. Like, I turned to the person I was watching with when that moment when, like, she comes back and Tyrese is like, he grabbed the baby and she's like, hang on. Like, I'll be right back. I'm going to go ice him.
Go in there.
I'm like, oh man, I kind of love her. But so which character do you think that you would be, and which character would you like to be? Because I would be already dead. That's like, I just wouldn't survive it.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, I would love to be Daryl or Abraham, just the guy with the muscles that can just, kick some ass and everything. But let's be honest, I would probably be, Eugene, just not as smart. I would probably do one of those, like, a roundhouse kick, and I'm thinking I'm looking all cool, and then I just get bit. I'm like, oh boy, Or really, I would like to be Rosita. I got better legs than she does, to be honest.
She has some sassy legs, so that's a big claim.
But, they put Eugene in shorts for a reason.
All right. Thank you so much for your time. We're really looking forward to seeing the rest of the season play out and to see what happens for Eugene.
Thank you so much for having me. Bye, y'all.